February 12, 1943, Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. The tropical air is heavy, thick with the scent of oil and salt. Palm trees sway near the runway, their leaves quivering as the roar of a new engine shatters the island's silence. Mechanics step back, shielding their faces as the strange, gull-winged fighter surges forward, its bent wings catching the sunlight like blades. On its fuselage, the stenciled name reads, Chance Vought F4U Corsair. Captain James Jim Cupp, a wiry 22-year-old Marine Corps pilot from Kentucky, sits behind the control stick, sweat running down his neck beneath his leather helmet. He's been briefed on what to expect. A beast to handle, the instructor said, but faster than hell. The Corsair had been called ugly, the ensign eliminator, some laughed, because of its long nose and violent torque on takeoff. The Navy brass didn't trust it for carrier landings. Too unpredictable, too heavy. But the Marines on Guadalcanal, they didn't have the luxury of waiting for perfect aircraft. They needed speed, power, survival. Cupp pushes the throttle forward. The Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp snarls like a living animal. 2,000 horsepower tearing at the air. The Corsair leaps off the runway, retracting its gear with a mechanical clank. Below, the ground drops away, foxholes, tents, and the rusting hulks of Japanese bombers dotting the airstrip. The radio crackles to life. Devil 1 to flight, form up. We're heading north. Report bogies over Munda. As the squadron of Marine Corsairs climb over the blue waters of the Solomon Sea, sunlight glints off their deep blue paint. Ahead lies the faint outline of New Georgia Island, and somewhere beyond, Japanese A-6M Zeros on patrol. For months, the Zeros had ruled these skies, agile, graceful, lethal in the hands of veteran Imperial Navy pilots. They shredded early Allied planes like the Wildcat and Buffalo. Even the P-40s had to dive away just to survive. The Corsair, however, was a different animal. 400 miles per hour in level flight, faster in a dive, and armed with 6 Browning .50 caliber machine guns. It was built not for elegance, but domination. As they cross the coast, Cupp spots silver glints cutting through the clouds, Zeros rising to meet them. Bandits, 10 o'clock high! Angels, 15! The radio fills with overlapping calls. The fight is on. Cupp banks hard left, feeling the G's press him into his seat. The Corsair's engine roars in response. No delicate hum, but a deep metallic growl that vibrates through his bones. Tracers flash past his canopy. He rolls, dives, and yanks back on the stick. The Zero behind him overshoots. In that split second, Cupp squeezes the trigger. The Corsair's 6 Brownings erupt in a blazing chorus. Shell casings cascade from the wings as a stream of fire rips through the Zero's fuselage. The Japanese plane bursts into flame, spiraling down toward the jungle below. "Splash 1-0!" he shouts. Back at Munda, Japanese ground crews watch in disbelief as black smoke columns rise. The new American fighter, the one they'd mocked for its strange wings and bulky frame, is faster, deadlier, unstoppable in a dive. Pilots who once danced circles around Wildcats now find themselves hunted. Over the radio, another Marine voice breaks through. "This bird's ugly, but damn if she ain't got claws." As the Corsairs return to base, landing gear clattering down, the air smells of victory and burned fuel. But no one celebrates yet. The war in the Solomons is far from over. The Japanese will be back in force, and the Marines will soon learn that speed and firepower come at a price. That night, as the sun sinks behind the shattered palm trees, Cupp writes in his logbook, F4U, first sortie. Handles like a wild stallion, but once you ride it, you never want to let go. Outside, the Corsair silhouettes gleam under the moonlight, wings folded like predators at rest. The ugly duckling of the Pacific has just drawn blood. March 1943, Espiritu Santo, New Hebrides. The island smells of fuel and salt water. Crates of ammunition lie stacked beside palm frond huts, and the distant thunder of radial engines echoes from the airstrip. Along a row of Corsairs, paint-chipped, oil-streaked, still gleaming beneath the tropical sun, ground crews work with sleeves rolled up, soaked in sweat and grease. Inside a makeshift briefing tent, a ceiling fan hums lazily while maps of the Solomon Islands flutter on the wall. Red pins mark the Japanese bases at Kahili, Buin, and Munda, deadly points of resistance. The Marines of VMF 124, America's first Corsair squadron, listen as their commander, Major William E. Geiss, paces before them. "Gentlemen," he says, voice steady but sharp, "our mission is fighter cover for the bombers over Bougainville. We stay fast, we stay high, and we don't dogfight with zeros. This isn't a dance, it's a strike." In the corner, Cup exchanges glances with Pappy Boyington, the wild-eyed former flying tiger who's just arrived from China. Boyington leans back, smirking. "Don't worry, Major," he mutters under his breath. "We'll teach those zeros how ugly we can be." Laughter ripples quietly through the room, tense but defiant. These pilots are young, most barely 20, and their aircraft are still unproven in the Pacific's unforgiving skies. The Corsair is fast, yes, but dangerous on landing. Its nose blocks the runway during descent, and the massive propeller can pull it offline with the slightest torque. Many planes have already nosed over or ground-looped. Out on the strip, Cup runs his hand along the bent gull wing of his aircraft. Each bolt feels solid, purposeful. The Navy might have rejected the Corsair for carrier use, but here, on muddy jungle fields, the Marines have no such luxury. "She's got spirit," the crew chief grins, wiping his hands. "You just gotta speak her language." Moments later, the squadron is airborne again, climbing into the pale blue sky. The island falls away beneath them, coral reefs glowing like turquoise veins through the ocean. Ahead, black smoke curls from the horizon. Bougainville. The formation breaks into combat spread as Japanese fighters rise to meet them. Sunlight flashes off aluminum wings. Over the radio, calm voices turn sharp. Orders, warnings, curses. "Bogies, 11 o'clock! 2 diving fast, coming out of the sun!" The air becomes chaos. Corsairs roll, twist, and dive. Machine guns chatter, tracers slicing the sky. The dogfight twists over jungle and sea, engines screaming in every direction. Cup locks eyes on a silver Zero banking left. He pulls hard into pursuit. The Corsair's nose lurches, torque fighting him every inch. He pushes the throttle full forward. The double wasp's roar fills his ears. The range closes. 200 yards, 150. He squeezes the trigger. 6 guns erupt, tearing across the Zero's fuselage. The enemy pilot jerks violently before the canopy bursts open in smoke and flame. "Splash 2, Cup breathes. Below, the Japanese airfield at Kahili burns. Corsairs strafe runways, fuel dumps, and parked aircraft. Explosions ripple across the base. Marines swoop low, their wings nearly skimming palm tops. Dust and fire swallow the landscape. Then, out of the smoke, a new sound, the rapid crack of anti-aircraft fire. Shrapnel rattles against Cup's fuselage. A hole punches through his right wing. He banks sharply, engine coughing. The Corsair shudders, but holds. "Hang on, baby, not today," he mutters through clenched teeth. He pulls out over the water, engine stuttering but alive. Behind them, the others reform, limping home over the endless Pacific. Back at Espiritu Santo, mechanics swarm the battered planes. Some are riddled with holes, one belly-landed in mud, but every pilot returns alive. For the Marines, it's more than a victory. It's proof. The Corsair can take punishment that would tear a Zero apart. That night, Boyington lights a cigarette in the dim glow of a tent lamp. "They called her ugly," he says, exhaling a thin plume of smoke. "Guess ugly wins wars." Cup chuckles, holding a tin cup of lukewarm coffee. Outside, a storm brews over the sea, lightning flashing in the distance. The war is changing. The Zero, once untouchable, is bleeding. And the bent-wing bird, rejected, doubted, feared, is just getting started. The Corsair's legend has begun to take shape in the humid air of the Solomons. Soon it will leave jungle runways behind and rise from carrier decks, bringing vengeance to every corner of the Pacific. September 1943, Russell Islands, Solomon Sea. The first light of dawn glows orange over the jungle canopy. Mist hangs low over the runway, and the air vibrates with the growl of engines being tested one by one. The Marines of VMF 214, now commanded by Major Gregory "Pappy" Boyington, are gearing up for another strike, this time deep into Japanese-held territory. Boyington, 31 and weathered beyond his years, strides along the line of Corsairs with a cigar clamped between his teeth. His flight jacket is streaked with oil, his face half hidden behind goggles and grit. Around him, younger pilots scramble to check their fuel lines and guns. "Keep your heads on a swivel," he shouts over the din. "Zeros are fast, but they're made of tinfoil. One burst and they light up like kindling." The squadron, nicknamed the Black Sheep, carries the swagger of outlaws, but behind the bravado lies precision. Their Corsairs glimmer dark blue under the rising sun, each adorned with names scrawled in white paint: Lucifer's Angel, Marine's Dream, Angel Face. At 0600 hours, the airfield erupts in sound. One by one, the Corsairs roar down the runway, their massive propellers whipping up a storm of dust and coral. The gull-wing silhouettes rise into the morning sky like a flock of iron predators. Their target? The Japanese base at Kahili, again. But this time, the mission is more than a raid. It's a message. At 15,000 feet, the formation cuts across the sea. The sun catches the Corsairs' curved wings, turning them silver for a moment, before shadow swallows them again. Over the radio, Boyington's voice is calm, but edged. "Keep your eyes open. They'll be waiting." He's right. Minutes later, black dots appear against the clouds, Zeros climbing fast in perfect formation. The Japanese pilots, disciplined and confident, roll into attack. Inside one Zero cockpit, Lieutenant Saburo Shindo grips the stick, his face set in quiet determination. He's flown for years, over China, the Philippines, Midway. His Zero is lighter, more nimble, and he's sure the new American planes are too heavy to turn with him. But as the two formations close, the sky explodes into chaos. Boyington dives, cutting into the sun. Tracers streak past his wings. He rolls hard left, the Corsair groaning under the G-force. A Zero follows, graceful, almost elegant. But the moment it climbs to turn, Boyington flips over and dives, throttle wide open. The Corsair's engine roars, a deep animal howl. The Zero tries to follow, but can't. In a dive, the F4U is untouchable. Its speed surges past 450 miles per hour. Boyington pulls the trigger, and 6.5 caliber guns unleash a torrent of flame. The Zero disintegrates in a ball of fire. "Scratch one," Boyington barks into the radio, voice tight with adrenaline. Nearby, Lieutenant Cupp circles above a group of Japanese bombers. He dives through their formation, cutting between gunners' tracer lines. One Betty bomber bursts into flames, its right wing tearing away. Another follows moments later. All across the sky, Corsairs slice through enemy formations, diving, rolling, climbing with brutal force. Their wings shimmer as sunlight hits bullet holes, a grim mosaic of victory and survival. From the ground, Japanese observers at Kihive watch helplessly as smoke pillars rise into the sky. The ugly American fighter has become a nightmare, faster, stronger, more resilient than anything the Imperial Navy can field. By the time Boyington's squadron returns to Russell, the sun is low. The airfield fills with cheers as each Corsair lands safely, wings folding upward like resting birds of prey. Boyington's plane taxis to a halt, its nose streaked with oil, the smell of burned cordite still thick in the air. A young mechanic runs up, grinning. "How many'd you get this time, Pappy?" Boyington grins back, cigar still in his teeth. Enough to make Tokyo nervous. That night, under the flicker of lanterns, the men gather round a wooden table stacked with tin cups and ration cans. They laugh, argue, and relive the chaos of the day, the near misses, the dogfights, the bursts of flame in the sky. But beneath the bravado lies fatigue. The war has taken its toll, friends lost, planes wrecked, nerves stretched thin. Still, the Corsair has given them something priceless, control of the air. Outside in the humid dark, the planes sit silently on the field, their wings folded, engines cooling. Crickets chirp, and somewhere in the distance, thunder rolls over the sea. Tomorrow they'll fly again. The Pacific is far from won, but tonight the black sheep sleep knowing that the once ugly fighter now rules the sky. A bent-winged terror that even the proudest Japanese officers can no longer laugh at. April 1944, Majura Atoll, Marshall Islands. The lagoon glows turquoise beneath a blazing sun. Around its edge, carriers and battleships lie at anchor, steel giants resting between storms. The war has shifted northward. Guadalcanal and the Solomons are behind them now. Ahead lies the Central Pacific, Truk, Saipan, Tinian, and beyond that, Japan itself. On the flight deck of the USS Bunker Hill, rows of Corsairs stand wing to wing, folded like sleeping birds. Deck crews swarm between them, checking fuel lines, ammunition belts, and the magnetic compasses bolted to the cockpit frames. Each aircraft bears fresh Navy markings, dark sea blue paint with white stars and bars. The Marines who once fought from coral strips now share deck space with carrier aviators. The Corsair, once dismissed as too dangerous for naval use, has been tamed. Through hundreds of modifications, longer landing gear, raised seats for better visibility, and a reinforced tailhook, it has earned its place aboard the fleet. The Navy has finally brought the ugly bird home to the sea. Lieutenant John Caldwell walks the deck, flight jacket half zipped, gloves tucked under his arm. He's flown Wildcats and Hellcats before, but today he'll take the Corsair into combat for the first time. Below deck, the ready room hums with nervous energy. A wall map shows their target, Truk Lagoon, the Japanese naval stronghold, once called the Gibraltar of the Pacific. "Gentlemen," the air group commander begins, pointing to the red circles drawn around the lagoon, "we're going in low at dawn. Zeeks, Bettys, ships, anything that moves, you hit it. Watch your spacing, watch your fuel. The Corsair's tough, but she's thirsty." The men nod, their faces pale under the fluorescent light. Outside, the carrier rocks gently with the swell. The war has a rhythm now. Launch, strike, return, repair, repeat. But no one ever gets used to the waiting. Dawn, February 17th, 1944. Operation Hailstone. Engines thunder to life across the deck. Prop wash tears through the humid air as the first Corsairs roll into position. The smell of high-octane fuel burns in the nose. The roar of the double Wasp drowns out every other sound. Caldwell's plane inches forward. The yellow-shirted deck officer signals with his paddles. Hold, release, go. The Corsair leaps from the deck into the pink glow of morning, wheels folding as it claws skyward. Below him, the endless expanse of ocean stretches in every direction, a mirror to the coming firestorm. As the strike group approaches truck, anti-aircraft bursts bloom black across the sky. The lagoon below churns with chaos, ships burning, dockyards ablaze, oil slicks spreading like dark veins. Corsair 12 to all call signs, targets at 2 o'clock, destroyers maneuvering south. Caldwell banks hard, lining up a run. He drops low over the water, engine howling, the gull wings slicing the air inches above the waves. He releases his bombs. 2 500-pounders tumble away, striking amidships. The explosion sends a column of water and flame towering into the air. As he pulls up, tracers arc from a shore battery, slashing across the cockpit. One round punches through his right wingtip. He jerks the stick left, heart hammering. The Corsair groans but holds steady. "She's hit," he gasps into the might, "but she's flying." He circles back once more, strafing a row of Betty bombers lined along the airstrip. Their fuel tanks erupt in quick succession, the blast lighting up the horizon like sunrise. All around him, the sky is filled with Corsairs, diving, climbing, unleashing hell. The old naval base that had sheltered Japan's fleet for years is now a graveyard of smoke and steel. By noon, it's over. The radio chatter fades to silence. The once mighty truck lagoon burns in the distance. Caldwell's squadron turns for home. Back aboard Bunker Hill, deck crews count bullet holes and patch fuel leaks. Pilots climb down from their cockpits, faces blackened with oil and sweat. The air smells of salt, smoke, and victory. An older chief petty officer watches as the Corsairs roll to a stop. He spits over the rail and mutters, half to himself, "Ugly birds, huh? Don't look so ugly now." That evening, on the mess deck, Caldwell sits with his squadron over coffee gone cold. Someone plays a harmonica softly in the corner. The ship rocks gently underfoot. Outside, the ocean glows faintly with phosphorescence, the only calm in a world that's burning. "We hit them hard today," Caldwell says quietly. "Yeah, but they'll hit back harder. They always do." He's right. Ahead lie the Marianas, Leyte, and Okinawa, each one a crucible waiting to test man and machine. For now, the Corsair has proven itself faster, tougher, and deadlier than any Zero left in the sky. But the war is far from over, and its greatest challenge still waits beyond the horizon. The bent-winged fighter has found its place on the carriers of the Pacific Fleet, and soon it will carve its name into history. April 1st, 1945, Okinawa, Ryukyu Islands. The horizon is a haze of smoke and flame. From the deck of the USS Bunker Hill, Lieutenant John Caldwell stares into the inferno, a coastline shrouded in mist, where shells burst like distant thunder. Operation Iceberg, the invasion of Okinawa, has begun. It will become the bloodiest battle of the Pacific War. Hundreds of ships crowd the sea, transports, destroyers, battleships, and carriers stretching from one edge of the horizon to the other. The air smells of salt and cordite. Overhead, the first Corsairs circle like dark gulls against a rising sun. Below them, the Marines crawl ashore under relentless Japanese artillery. Inland, the island is a fortress, caves, bunkers, and hidden airfields dug deep into coral ridges. Every mile of ground must be taken by hand. For the pilots, the mission is clear: provide close air support, destroy kamikaze staging sites, and protect the fleet from suicide attacks. But the Japanese are desperate now, and they intend to make the sea itself a graveyard. At dawn, the flight deck trembles as the Corsairs roll forward one by one. The engines scream, propellers blurring into disks. Caldwell pulls his goggles down and glances at the crew chief, giving him a thumbs up. He salutes, then throttles forward. The Corsair rockets into the sky, heavy with bombs, rockets, and machine gun ammunition. The sunlight glints off the ocean below, where waves shimmer over the black hulls of the invasion fleet. "Corsair 1 to all flights. Stay sharp. Kamikazes are out there, low and fast." Within minutes, the radio erupts in static and shouts. "Bogies inbound, bearing 210. Multiple contacts, low over the water." Caldwell's heart races. Through the haze he sees them, a swarm of dots emerging from the southern horizon, sunlight flashing on their canopies, Zeros, Oscars, and K-84s converted for suicide runs. The first wave dives straight toward the fleet. Alarms blare across every ship. Flak bursts dot the sky like dark blossoms. Caldwell shoves the stick forward and dives. The Corsair's wings howl as he picks up speed. He locks onto a kamikaze aiming for a destroyer and opens fire. The 6.5 caliber guns blaze, tracers walking across the enemy fuselage. The Zero explodes mid-dive, flaming debris scattering across the sea. Below, the destroyer rolls in the swell, untouched. "Splash 1, he breathes, circling back. But there are too many. One kamikaze plunges into a transport ship, detonating in a plume of orange fire. Another skims the ocean surface, missing the bow of a carrier by seconds before vanishing into the waves. The sky is chaos. Planes spiraling, AA bursts cracking, smoke trailing like dark ribbons. Caldwell's Corsair shakes violently as a near-miss rocks him from behind. He yanks hard left, just in time to see a kamikaze slam into another destroyer off his wingtip. The blast sends a shockwave through the air. He grits his teeth and climbs. "Stay in it, boys! Don't give them an inch!" By evening, the horizon burns red. The sea is littered with wreckage, broken wings, oil slicks, and drifting bodies. But the fleet holds. The Marines have secured their beachheads, and the Corsairs, though battered, return one by one. Caldwell's plane touches down on Bunker Hill, skidding slightly before the tailhook catches. The deck crew rushes forward, waving him down. His plane is riddled with holes, oil leaking from the cowling. He pulls off his helmet, face streaked with sweat and smoke. A medic hands him a canteen. "Rough one, sir?" Caldwell nods. "We lost a few, but we gave back plenty." For weeks the battle rages. The Corsairs fly multiple sorties daily, bombing cave complexes, strafing roads, intercepting kamikazes. Their blue wings darken with soot and salt, their fuselages patched and repainted between missions. The Japanese pilots fight with unmatched desperation, but their losses are catastrophic. Each attack costs men, planes, and hope. The once proud Zero, once the terror of the Pacific, now falls prey to the very aircraft it once mocked. And the Corsair, ugly, brutal, indomitable, reigns supreme. May 11th, 1945. The USS Bunker Hill steams off Okinawa's coast. It's morning, calm and clear. Pilots eat breakfast below deck, the war momentarily distant. Caldwell sips coffee from a tin mug, unaware that death is minutes away. At 10:04 hours, 2 Japanese kamikazes break through cloud cover, unseen until the last second. They dive straight for the carrier. The first plane smashes into the flight deck, exploding near the island superstructure. The second follows seconds later, crashing through the hangar deck and detonating among fueled Corsairs waiting for launch. The ship erupts in fire. Flames leap hundreds of feet into the air. Ammunition cooks off. Planes detonate. Fuel floods the decks in rivers of fire. Crewmen are thrown overboard or trapped below decks. Caldwell stumbles through the smoke, choking, ears ringing. The deck is chaos, burning metal, screaming men, explosions that shake the sea itself. He helps drag two mechanics toward the edge, their uniforms ablaze. "Go!" someone yells. "She's gonna blow again!" They leap into the oily water as another explosion tears through the ship. The Corsairs, proud blue warbirds that ruled the Pacific, burn in twisted heaps across the deck. Hours later, the fires are finally contained. The USS Bunker Hill is mortally wounded, but afloat. 600 sailors and airmen are dead or missing. The survivors float in lifeboats, watching the smoke rise into the sky like a black monument. For those who lived, the image would never fade, the cost of victory, the sacrifice behind every sortie. The Corsair had carried them through the storm, and in the process had become more than a machine. It was a symbol of endurance, of defiance, of survival itself. As the sun sets over Okinawa, Caldwell sits silently on a rescue ship's deck, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the horizon. The sky glows crimson, the same color as the fires that once consumed the carrier, and the same hue as the Pacific sunset reflected in the Corsair's bent wings. The war will soon end, but the legend of the Corsair, born of ridicule, baptized in fire, will live on. August 15th, 1945, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. A humid stillness hangs over Ford Island. The air smells faintly of oil, salt, and victory. Across the harbor, ships fly strings of signal flags, red, white, and blue banners fluttering in the breeze. From the control tower, the sound of distant bells echoes, the signal the men had scarcely dared to dream of hearing. Japan has surrendered. The war that began with flames over Pearl Harbor has ended with firestorms over Tokyo. Around the Pacific, weary soldiers and sailors stop what they're doing and simply stare at the sky, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or both. On the edge of the airfield, a row of battle-worn F4U Corsairs stands silent. Their paint is faded, their wings pockmarked by salt and shrapnel, but they remain proud, symbols of a victory carved from years of loss. Lieutenant John Caldwell, now thin, sunburned, and quiet beyond his age, walks along the line of planes. He runs his hand over the scarred metal of his old aircraft, the same Corsair that had brought him home from a dozen missions and nearly died with him at Okinawa. The gull wings, bent and beautiful, still gleam faintly in the morning light. Ugly bird, you made it. Across the Pacific, stories of the Corsair had already become legend. Marines in muddy foxholes on Peleliu spoke of it like a guardian angel, the blue silhouette that roared overhead and turned enemy trenches into dust. Carrier crews whispered about its dives at Truk, its duels with kamikazes, and its pilots who never came home. For every pilot who cursed its vicious torque or blind landing approach, another blessed its armor, its claws, its sheer refusal to die. To the Japanese, it was something else entirely, the whistling death. The nickname came from the unique sound made by its air intakes as it dove. To those on the receiving end, it was a banshee scream, a harbinger of destruction that filled the skies from Bougainville to Okinawa. Even among Allied pilots, the Corsair commanded awe. It had claimed over 2,000 enemy aircraft with a kill ratio of 11-1, the highest of any naval fighter in the war. But its true legacy wasn't just in numbers, it was in transformation. The plane everyone laughed at, everyone feared, everyone doubted, had become the very symbol of air superiority. September 2nd, 1945, Tokyo Bay. Aboard the USS Missouri, General Douglas MacArthur signs the instrument of surrender. Cameras click, pens scratch, and flags ripple in a light breeze. Overhead, the sky fills with aircraft, hundreds of them flying in perfect formation, Hellcats, Avengers, Helldivers, and Corsairs. Caldwell is there too, sitting in the cockpit of his Corsair as the fleet passes over Tokyo. Below, the burned-out city stretches to the horizon, a wasteland of rubble and memory. He looks down at the scars on the land, then back at his instrument panel. Oil pressure steady, altimeter reading 12,000 feet. The Pacific glows below him, calm at last. We made it. He thinks of all the names painted on Corsair fuselages that will never fly again. Friends left behind at Bougainville, at Rabaul, at Okinawa. Their laughter still echoes in his head. Boyenton's raspy drawl, Cup's dry jokes, and the mechanic's shout of "She's got spirit" before every launch. The war is over, but the memories will never stop flying. 1946, North Island Naval Air Station, California. The warbirds come home. Corsairs are lined up in long rows on the tarmac, some destined for museums, others for scrap. Pilots gather for photographs, smiling, arms draped over each other's shoulders, unaware that they're standing in the presence of history. Caldwell's unit disbands quietly. He watches as his plane is rolled into a hangar, its propeller tied down, its cockpit sealed. For a long moment, he stands there, hands in pockets, until the mechanic beside him says softly, "Hard to believe she's done flying." Caldwell nods. Maybe she's earned her rest. He looks once more at the gull wings, curved, fierce, unmistakable, and something inside him stirs. The Corsair wasn't just metal and rivets. It was courage, sacrifice, transformation. It was every young man who climbed into the cockpit knowing each mission could be his last and flew anyway. Years later, when the jets replaced propellers and the Pacific became a memory, the legend of the Corsair only grew stronger. Children read about it in comic books. Veterans spoke of it in hushed tones over bar counters, and at air shows decades later, when a restored Corsair would thunder overhead, that familiar bent-winged silhouette cutting across the sky, grown men would still look up and feel their hearts tremble. The Japanese officers who had once mocked its appearance had long since stopped laughing. They too remembered the sound, the whistling scream that came before fire and ruin. It was the last sound many of them ever heard. As the sun sets over the Pacific, the narration slows, fading into memory. They called it ugly. They said it was too heavy, too wild, too strange to ever belong in the sky. But war doesn't reward beauty. It rewards resilience. And the Corsair was born to survive. The screen fades to black, the faint whine of a Pratt & Whitney engine echoing into silence.